I paid $4,375 for our family Christmas. They left without me and called me controlling when I canceled the entire trip on Christmas Eve. I paid for 80% of our family's Christmas trip and performed all of the planning. Yet, everyone made their own travel plans and began their holiday without me. So, I canceled all of my plans. I am 28 and I have always been the family planner and the one with the most consistent income among my siblings. My folks are retired and living on a fixed income. My older brother, Jason, 31, works in construction but his work is seasonal, so money is difficult during the winter. My younger sister, Erin, 25, recently graduated from graduate school, so she is currently paying off loans and works part-time while looking for jobs. I work in technology and make a good living. So, I've developed a habit of organizing family excursions and paying more than my fair share of expenses because I want us all to spend time together, and I know money is tight for everyone else. This began about 6 months ago when my mother commented how much she missed the huge family Christmases we used to have as children and how it would be good to do something special now that Erin had graduated and Jason's fiancée Lena might be joining our family soon. I became enthusiastic about the concept and began researching choices for a family Christmas vacation. After looking into numerous options, I discovered this incredible mountain home that could comfortably sleep 8 people, had a large kitchen for cooking together, a fireplace and a hot tub, the works. It was in Colorado and the photos looked fantastic. The overall cost of a week-long stay during Christmas was $5,500, which made me choke somewhat. But I thought about how much joy it would bring everyone and how we hadn't been together for a holiday in nearly 3 years. When I mentioned the idea over our family group chat, everyone was really excited. Mom began talking about all the cookies she planned to bake. Jason stated that he and Lena were certainly in. Erin was overjoyed to have a white Christmas, and Dad was already planning which movies we would watch by the fire. Here's where I made what I considered a generous offer. I told everyone I truly wanted to make this happen for our family, and because I knew everyone's budget was tight, I offered to cover most of the expense myself. I proposed that I pay $4,000 of the $5,500, with the remaining $1,500 divided among my parents, Jason and Lena, Erin, and myself. That meant everyone else would only have to donate $375 each, which appeared much more feasible for their budgets. So, my total would be $4,375 out of $5,500, or almost 80% of the cost. Everyone expressed their gratitude and stated it was really generous of me. Jason stated he and Lena couldn't have financed the trip otherwise. Erin burst into tears as she said how much it meant to her to have a family Christmas after such a tough year of graduate school. And my parents continued thanking me for making it possible for the entire family to get together. I felt great about being able to share this event with my family. I charged the entire $5,500 to my credit card and received confirmation for the cabin with the idea that everyone would pay me their $375 parts before the vacation. Over the next 2 months, I was in charge of all the planning. I looked into local activities, discovered decent restaurants, planned meals we could prepare together, and scheduled everyone's time off from work. Everyone looked to be really interested and thrilled, sharing ideas and discussing how much fun it would be. About 2 months before the trip, I mentioned collecting everyone's $375 payments so that I could pay off my credit card. Everyone agreed and thanked me again for funding such a significant percentage of the bill. As we came closer to the trip, I began to see some worrying signals, but I tried to dismiss them since I didn't want to appear anxious or controlling. About 3 weeks before we were supposed to leave, I asked everyone for $375. Jason explained that he and Lena were still putting the money together and asked if they could repay me after Christmas when he got his next major construction job. Erin explained that she had some unforeseen expenses and needed to pay me in installments over the next few months. My parents agreed to pay their half but asked if they could wait until after the trip because they had some medical issues that month. I was furious, but I didn't want to be the horrible guy who destroys Christmas for money. So I said fine, everyone could repay me after the trip. Even though it was just $375 per person, I believed they'd be fine eventually, and I didn't want to stress everyone out right before what was supposed to be a joyful family trip, for which I was already paying the majority of the expenses. Then, about a week before the trip, the preparations began to take an unusual turn. I had planned a detailed itinerary that included varied activities for each day, restaurant reservations, and grocery lists for our cooking nights. Everything was coordinated and shared with everyone. But the main difficulty began approximately 4 days before we were meant to go. I texted the group chat asking everyone to confirm their flight details so we could plan airport pickup timings, and then everything fell apart. Jason replied back stating that he and Lena had decided to drive instead of flying because it was less expensive and that they planned to leave a day early to make a road trip out of it. Erin explained that she had really booked a trip that arrived 2 days before everyone else because her pal could only hang out on certain days. My parents indicated they were still planning to fly on the original day, but they had booked a different flight that was $100 less per person. I was truly astonished and hurt. I pointed out that we had deliberately planned this as a family trip where we'd all go together and spend the entire week together, but suddenly everyone was making individual plans that didn't include me. I stated that it appeared that they were treating this as individual vacations where they simply happened to be staying in the same spot, rather than the family holiday I had envisioned and was paying 80% of the money for. That's when things became pretty tense. Jason accused me of being controlling and stated that it didn't matter when everyone arrived as long as we were all there for Christmas. Erin asked why I was so concerned about travel plans when the most important thing was to spend time together. My parents said they were just trying to save money and didn't believe it was important. I tried to explain that I had worked hard to prepare this trip as a family event and that I was contributing over $4,000 of my own money, particularly to ensure that we had a unique family vacation together. I stated that it appeared like everyone was treating the trip as separate vacation accommodations that I was supporting, rather than the family experience I had planned and was mostly paying for. Jason became defensive, claiming that I was being theatrical, that they were all still planning to attend the vacation, and that I was acting as if they had canceled. Erin said I was being unfair and that everyone was still thrilled about the vacation, but their reactions indicated that they didn't understand why I was upset, which made me feel even worse. The next day, I decided to attempt to salvage things and wrote a message asking if we could at least plan such that everyone was at the cabin by a particular time on Christmas Eve so we could have a real family meal and gift exchange. I stated that I would change my own travel plans to ensure that I arrived on time, regardless of when everyone else arrived. I didn't hear back from anyone for about 12 hours, until Jason texted back stating he and Lena had already made dinner reservations at a local restaurant for Christmas Eve and couldn't change them. Erin mentioned that she might be spending Christmas Eve with a friend and would try to get to the cabin by Christmas morning. My folks said they'd be there on Christmas Eve, but then booked an early ticket home the next day since they found a fantastic bargain and didn't want to stay the entire week. At this point, I was quite irritated because I felt like everyone was treating this trip as if it were just a convenient place to stay while they went on their own separate holiday activities, despite my significant financial contribution to making this family event possible. I phoned my mother immediately since I suspected there was some miscommunication in the group conversation. When we spoke, she seemed shocked that I was so unhappy, and she said she assumed I'd be glad that everyone was still going to the trip, even if the schedule was a little different than planned. I tried to explain that I had planned and paid for 80% of this trip, particularly to allow our family to spend quality time together, but it felt like everyone was treating it like a subsidized vacation rental while they pursued their own vacation plans. She said she understood my displeasure, but I had expected too much coordination from everyone, and the most important thing was that we were all in the same spot. Following that call, I became even more furious, since it appeared that no one in my family understood why I was upset. And I began to wonder whether I was being unreasonable. But then I remembered that I had spent months planning this trip, put over $4,000 of my own money into it, arranged my own work schedule around the family's plans, and now everyone was treating it as if it were individual vacation accommodations that I was providing for free. I awoke 2 days before the intended departure date to a group message from Jason informing me that he and Lena were departing that morning for their road trip and would see everyone at the cabin. A few hours later, Erin texted that she was at the airport about to catch her early flight. That afternoon, my parents texted me that they had decided to alter their flight to leave that evening rather than the next day because they were excited to begin their vacation. I was at work when I received all of these messages, and I had this terrible sinking sensation in my stomach. I noticed that everyone in my family had started their trip without me, despite the fact that I had planned and paid for 80% of everything. I texted the group to see if anyone wanted to meet up when I arrived the next day as scheduled, but no one replied for hours. Finally, Jason texted back that they were driving and had horrible mobile coverage, but that they would see me when I arrived. Erin quickly messaged me saying she was busy but looking forward to seeing me soon. My parents did not respond at all. That evening, I was sitting at home packing for a trip that suddenly felt very different from what I had planned and paid for. I kept thinking about how I was going to arrive at this cabin after everyone had already gone on their own separate vacations for a day or two, and how the family holiday I had planned and donated almost $4,000 to would never happen. I couldn't sleep that night because I was torn between being hurt and angry, and I wondered if I was overreacting to what could have been simply bad communication and different travel preferences. I was scheduled to fly out in the afternoon. The following morning I was anxious and upset, but I kept telling myself that maybe things would improve once we were all together. Around noon, I texted the group to see how everyone was doing and if there was anything I should pick up on the way from the airport. Jason responded back, stating he and Lena were having a great day and had discovered a great hiking track. They planned to spend the day exploring the region. Erin texted a selfie with her pal, saying they were having a great day catching up and planned to go skiing that afternoon. My parents sent a message saying they had checked into the cabin, it was gorgeous, and they were going to drive into town to explore. Reading those texts, I had a flash of clarity and recognized that everyone was already on their own holidays, utilizing the property I had paid $4,375 for as their base. Despite my significant financial commitment to making this family event possible, I would arrive at a place where everyone had already established their own routines and schedules that did not include me. I sat there staring at my packed bag and printed flight card and made a decision that I'm still not convinced was correct or wrong. I texted the group that I wasn't feeling well and couldn't make the trip. I told everyone I hoped they had a good time and that we could arrange something new when they returned. My phone suddenly began ringing. Jason called first and was genuinely worried, asking if I was all right and if I needed anything. I told him I was feeling pretty bad and didn't want to travel. He suggested that was probably a good idea and that I should rest. Erin called next, saying she was sorry I wasn't feeling well and asking if she could help. I stated I needed to sleep it off. My parents contacted me that evening, and my mother was concerned about me being unwell alone. I felt bad lying to them, but I also thought that explaining the true reason I wasn't coming would only cause drama and ruin everyone else's trip, which I had largely paid for. For the next 2 days, I received intermittent texts from everyone wishing I was feeling better and sending photos from their activities. Jason and Lena shared images of their hiking trips. Erin sent photos of herself snowboarding with her companion. My parents sent images of the cabin and the local Christmas market they went to. Everyone appeared to be having a good time enjoying the vacation I had made possible. But then on Christmas Eve I started receiving various types of messages. Erin texted wondering when I thought I'd be feeling well enough to join them, as she hoped we could conduct our present exchange soon. My parents called to see if I was feeling better and if I wanted them to set aside some of the Christmas supper they had planned. Jason texted to see if I was still going to come for the second half of the week. I realized that everyone was expecting me to show up at some time. Even though they had all started the journey without me and had been doing their own things, it appeared that they wanted me to come finish paying for and organizing the family vacation they had already been enjoying on their own terms. I decided to be honest and wrote a message to the group chat, saying that I wasn't actually unwell, but that I felt hurt and excluded when everyone made separate travel plans and began the trip without including me in the coordination. I stated that it appeared that everyone was treating the trip I had planned and paid for mostly as individual vacation accommodations rather than a family event. The reaction did not meet my expectations. Jason called me right away and was furious, accusing me of lying to everyone and making them worried about me for no apparent reason. He said I was being deceptive and that everyone had still planned to spend time with me once I arrived. Erin texted stating she was sad because I hadn't been honest about my sentiments and that she believed I was punishing everyone for not following my exact intentions. My parents called and my father was really unhappy. He claimed I had been dishonest and was spoiling Christmas for everyone. He stated they had been looking forward to seeing me and couldn't understand why I was causing issues with travel itineraries. In all of these conversations, I tried to explain that I felt like everyone had prioritized their own individual vacation plans over the family trip we had supposedly planned together, and that it hurt to realize I was apparently the only one who cared about us actually spending the trip together. I pointed out that I had contributed over $4,000 specifically to make this family adventure possible, but no one seemed to get it, and everyone was fixated on the fact that I had lied about being unwell. Then my mother called me back and said something that truly hurt. She said that I had offered to pay for most of the trip and everyone had been thankful, but that didn't give me control over how everyone else spent their holiday. She accused me of being selfish and attempting to manipulate everyone into following my exact plans simply because I had paid for the majority of the trip. That conversation hurt because it made me realize that my family perceived my financial contribution as just paying for something, rather than making a significant sacrifice so that we could all have a family event. It appeared that they thought I had paid for the trip as a present with no expectations, rather than realizing that I had donated more than $4,000 because I wanted us to have a specific type of experience together. After that call, I was angry and wounded, and I took a decision that I knew would most likely make things worse, but I felt like my kindness was being utterly ignored. I had invested over $4,000 of my own money to create a family event, yet everyone treated it as if it were a subsidized individual vacation rental. I went into the Airbnb website and canceled our reservation. Because it was Christmas Eve and we were well within the stringent cancellation time, I lost the entire $5,500, which included the $4,375 I had paid as a gift and the $1,125 in donations I would never get. Was so upset and felt misled that I no longer cared about the money. I just wanted everyone to understand that if they didn't want to participate in the family trip I had planned and mainly paid for, it wouldn't happen at all. I did not immediately tell anyone what I had done. I simply switched off my phone and attempted to have a quiet Christmas alone, which was dismal but preferable to continuing to quarrel with my family. When I turned on my phone the day after Christmas, there were roughly 30 missed calls and several text messages. Apparently, everyone was shut out of the cabin on Christmas morning and discovered that the reservation had been canceled. The Airbnb owner apologized but stated that the booking had been canceled by the person who made it, and there was nothing they could do because it was a vacation and the cabin was already reserved by other visitors. My family had to scurry for hotel rooms on Christmas Day, which were both expensive and limited in availability. Jason and Lena decided to go home that day because they couldn't afford hotel rooms for the rest of the week. Erin had to cancel her plans with her friend and go home early. My parents were able to obtain a hotel room, but the cost was nearly equal to their original $375 payment. The messages I received were not pleasant. Jason sent me a long text calling me selfish and vengeful, claiming that I had ruined Christmas for everyone and cost them money they couldn't afford to lose. Erin labeled me manipulative and couldn't believe I would punish everyone for not meeting my exact requests. My parents were horrified and disappointed. My father claimed he never imagined I would be so harsh to my own family. But what really irritated me was that no one mentioned that I had lost over $4,000 of my own money or that I had spent months arranging a trip that everyone had virtually abandoned while still expecting me to pay for. Everyone was focused on how my cancellation had inconvenienced them. But no one seemed to acknowledge that their actions had also hurt and inconvenienced me, especially given my significant financial contribution. So, am I in for doing this? Update: it's been almost a week since my last post, and I wanted to give everyone an update on what's been going on because the situation has become more confusing, and I'm still processing everything. First, I'd like to respond to some of the comments on my initial post. Many people question why I didn't just talk to my family directly before canceling the trip. And in retrospect, I believe I should have been more vocal about my worries earlier in the process. I tend to avoid confrontation, so I was probably hoping that things would work out without me being the bad one who puts their foot down on plans. Several individuals also pointed out that I should have been more clear about my expectations when I first offered to pay for such a major amount of the vacation, which I believe is also valid criticism. I was attempting to be kind and allow everyone to participate, but I didn't adequately express that my generosity was linked to particular expectations about how the trip would proceed. Anyway, here's what has happened since I last updated. My mom contacted me the day after Christmas. I was expecting another heated conversation, but she was much calmer than usual. She stated that once they had all returned home and had time to reflect on what had occurred, she was beginning to comprehend my point of view more clearly. She added that as they were all racing to locate places to stay on Christmas morning, Jason made a remark about how they didn't have to follow my itinerary anymore. And that's when she realized something. Perhaps they were treating the trip differently than I had anticipated. She stated that from my perspective, it appeared like everyone had taken advantage of my planning and big financial commitment while ignoring the family experience I was attempting to create. My mother also stated that she thought they had all gotten a little carried away with their individual ideas, losing sight of the reality that this was supposed to be a family trip, which I was partly supporting. She understood how upsetting it would be for me to see everyone make their own plans while expecting me to handle all of the planning and cover 80% of the costs. She asked if I would be willing to speak with my father because he was still unhappy about the money they had lost on the hotel, but she felt he needed to hear my side of the story. I agreed to talk with him, and the conversation was difficult but eventually beneficial. My father was still concerned about the financial impact, especially since they are on a fixed income and the unexpected hotel bill was a major hardship for them. However, when I explained how I felt watching everyone make separate plans for the trip I had planned and donated over $4,000 to, he began to understand why I was so upset. He said he had no idea that their decision to take a different flight was part of a pattern that made me feel excluded from my own family holiday, which I had primarily paid for. He also stated that he had mistakenly thought of my financial contribution as just being generous, not realizing that I was making such a large amount specifically because I wanted us to have a certain type of experience together. When he thought about it that way, he understood why it felt like everyone was taking advantage of my kindness. We discussed the cancellation, and I admitted that it was most likely an excessive reaction that I had when I was deeply wounded and upset. My father stated he wished I had discussed my worries with them before it got to that stage. But he understood why I felt severe action was the only way to attract everyone's attention after contributing so much money. By the end of that conversation, my father admitted that he wasn't pleased with the way things had turned out, but he recognized that everyone had contributed to the problem and that I hadn't just been trying to destroy everyone's Christmas for no reason. My interactions with Erin and Jason have become more difficult. Erin contacted me a few days after Christmas. She was still furious, but she was wounded rather than angry. She claimed she thought I had punished her for something she didn't realize she was doing wrong, and that if I had been more explicit about my expectations, she would have tried to meet them. I told Erin that I tried to express my concerns when everyone started making separate travel plans, but I felt that no one was listening or taking my concerns seriously, especially given how much I contributed monetarily. She remembered my being furious about the travel arrangements, but she didn't realize it was part of a larger problem with how everyone was handling the vacation. Erin also stated that she had been looking forward to meeting her buddy and had not considered how it might influence the trip's family dynamics. She stated she could understand how it would appear that she was favoring her friend over our family time, especially because I had put in so much effort to arrange and pay for the majority of the vacation. We ended the chat on a positive tone, with Erin apologizing for not being more attentive of my sentiments and expressing a desire to rebuild our friendship. She also offered to pay me the $375 she had initially committed to contribute, even if the trip did not take place, which I appreciated, given that I had lost more than $4,000. Jason has been the most difficult to deal with. When he finally called, he remained angry and defensive. He maintained that he believed I had overreacted and that canceling the trip was vengeful and manipulative. He said that he and Lena had been looking forward to the trip for months and that I had spoiled it due to what he considered minor coordination concerns. I attempted to convey to Jason that it wasn't just about coordination, but also feeling like everyone had put their individual tastes over the family adventure we had planned together, which I was primarily supporting. I stated that when he and Lena decided to drive instead of fly, extend their trip into a road trip, make separate dinner reservations, and spend the majority of their time hiking together rather than with the family, it appeared that they were using the cabin I had paid $4,375 for as a base for their own romantic getaway rather than participating in a family trip. Jason became defensive, claiming that he had not known I expected him and Lena to spend every minute of the trip doing family activities, and that he assumed there would be time for both family and couple activities. He stated that he felt I was trying to control every element of everyone's trip. I told Jason that I wasn't attempting to micromanage everything, but that I had planned and paid for 80% of a family trip, and when everyone began making plans that excluded the rest of the family, it no longer seemed like a family trip. I told him that if he and Lena wanted to go on a romantic retreat, they should have planned and paid for it themselves rather than expecting me to finance their vacation while they ignored the family element. That conversation became heated, and Jason made some hurtful remarks about my controlling and manipulative behavior. He also stated that just because I made more money did not give me the right to control how others spend their time, which I believe missed the point of what I was trying to express. We concluded the call without resolving anything, and Jason hasn't contacted me since then. He also hasn't offered to pay anything towards the money I lost after agreeing to donate $375. Lena texted me an apology for her role in the matter and expressed hope that we could work things out, but she also stated that she felt I had put Jason in an impossible position by asking him to pick between family time and relationship time. The financial position has also been a cause of stress. Since I canceled the vacation, I lost the entire $5,500, my $4,375 commitment, plus the $1,125 in donations I would never get. Erin has volunteered to give me the $375 she had committed to contribute, even though the vacation did not happen, which I greatly appreciate. My parents have also offered to pay their $375 amount. While I understand it is a financial concern for them, Jason hasn't offered to pay anything. And when I mentioned it during our phone call, he argued that because I canceled the vacation I should bear the financial penalties. He stated that he and Lena were willing to pay their half of the trip as scheduled, but they should not be required to pay for a vacation that I canceled in what he described as a tantrum. Aaron pointed out that because no one has paid me yet, it's as if I paid over $4,000 to teach everyone a lesson about communication and expectations, a quite pricey lesson. She is not mistaken about that. My mother has advised that we try to plan another family trip for spring break with greater communication and expectations from the start. She stated that everyone gained something from this experience and that we may do better next time. I'm open to the notion, but I'm also concerned about falling into the same pattern where I wind up doing all of the preparation and paying for most of the trip while everyone else makes individual decisions that ignore the group. Aaron has proposed that if we do organize another trip, we should have everyone pay their amounts in advance before making any bookings, and that we should have a clear understanding of what kind of vacation we're doing and what everyone's expectations are. That sounds like a fantastic plan to me, especially considering how much money I lost this time. I'm still unsure whether I was in this case. I believe I could have dealt with my displeasure better and been more clear about my expectations earlier in the process. But I also believe my family took advantage of my generosity and failed to examine how their individual choices influenced the experience I was attempting to build and mostly fund for all of us. What I do know is that this entire experience has taught me that I need to be more specific about my expectations when planning events for my family, especially when I'm donating a significant amount of money. I can't assume that everyone shares my vision for how things should go simply because they appear enthusiastic about the overall concept and grateful for my financial contribution.